champ now.
Yes, I didn't say. What are you looking so sad about, champ?
I'm surprised at you. I mean, I'm really insulted. I mean, that's not right what you just said.
What do you mean? What I just said?
I mean, I'm getting a drink of water. I'm late getting home, but you talk. I said something about the greatest heavyweight champ, man. I'm a hometown man, and you talking about Joe Louis, man. Joe Louis wouldn't be nothing for me. Joe, I tell you, Joe, do you think you would have stood a chance with me?
Well, Clay, one time during my career, I was on a Bomber Money tour.
I would have been a bum because compared to you.
We just on the tour.
What's happening, my people? It's Cast Sports again, back for another afternoon with the family. That's right. You know what time it is. If it's Monday through Friday, 2 p.m., it's the Box Storian, bringing you all that boxing history. Boxing is the greatest sport of them all. That's why we love it. Can't get enough of it. Salute to everyone and welcome to another episode of Cast Sports, the Box Storian. Today, the light heavyweights. Has a family today. It's Friday, at the end of another big week of boxing history. We're going to look at like 4 light heavyweights today. We're going to look at a little history of the light heavyweight division, some of the names. Jack Root, the first light heavyweight champion, okay? And then we're going to look at Billy Conn, the man on the screen, Marvin Johnson, John Conte, little Maxie Rosenblum, and the top 15 light heavyweights of all time. All that today. on Cast Sports the Box Story, bringing you all that boxing history. All right, it's Friday at the end of another big week of boxing history. Next week, we're going to take a look at the first world champion in each weight class, all 17 other weight classes. The first world champion in each. That will probably be Monday, okay? Like Jack Root was the first light heavyweight champion. We're not going to look at him today because we're going to look at him Monday as we look at the first world champion in all 17 weight classes. Boxing tomorrow. I think is AJ and Jake Paul tonight or tomorrow? I'm not sure. But I hope AJ knocks his block off. Yeah. But you know what we are going to do first today? We're going to take a look at our fight of the day first. As we always start out, dig into the archives and look at a classic fight. Of course, today we're going to look at one in the light heavyweight division. I think we looked at this one before a while back, but I needed a light heavyweight fight, so we're going to take a brief look at this one for our fight of the day today. Since we're in the light heavyweight division, it's going to be a light heavyweight fight. But how's everybody? You ready for the weekend? It's Friday. I don't think we got anything too big happening this weekend, but we're rapidly approaching 2026. We got this weekend and next weekend, and then that'll be it. Next weekend will be the last weekend in 2025, right? And we'll be into the new year. Everybody got that January 31st circled on your calendar. Slick Shakur Stevenson versus the Takeover, Teofimo Lopez. It'll be a great matchup. Looking forward to that one. Early in the year. Hopefully it's starting out the new year with a bang and starting out a year full of great fights. Okay, maybe we can get one like that every month. Get a big, great fight like that every month, like we said the other day. That's what makes it a golden era. Get those type of matchups on a regular basis. Okay, that's what's missing from this era. But maybe 2026 will start it. Once or twice a month, get top level like Shakur and Teofimo in there together. But okay, without further ado, let's get on up to our fight of the day. Today for Friday. Salute Mike Rim. Let's get ready to start the fight of the day today for Friday, December the 19th, 2026. Without further ado, get into today's fight of the day. Get this thing started. Let's get this thing started. Like, what's his name? Then the announcer says, I can't think of his name, but let's get ready to rumble. Well, okay, let's go. Fight of the day. Okay. Today's fight of the day is Matthew Saad Muhammad versus Yaki Lopez. July 13th, 1980. Miracle Matt scores his greatest win. Okay. 45 years ago. Saad Muhammad versus Lopez, July 13th, 1980. Miracle Matt scores his greatest win. All right, let's get into it. This is the second fight between these two. I think we might have did the first one a few months back, but this is 2 between them. Now, in the opinion of plenty of fight fans, when it comes down to which ring warrior is deserving of wearing the unofficial crown of most exciting fighter of all time, it comes down to 2 men. Arturo Gatti, aka the human highlight reel, and Matthew Saad Muhammad, aka Miracle Matt. It's down to 2 men. Gatti or Saad Muhammad, the human highlight reel or Miracle Matt. Okay. Now, we have been treated to some great fight action from both of these fighters, okay? But this fight, the fight that took place on July 13th, 1980, was super special. In fact, almost agonizing to watch. Now, Gatti went through sheer hell in order to win, and to thrill us, and he did it numerous times. Okay? Did it numerous times. And so did too this Saad Muhammad. And the fight, absolute war, the former Matthew Franklin somehow managed to win on 45 years ago in this fight against Lopez. His victory coming in almost otherworldly fashion. And this fight ranked for some as the greatest action fight in boxing history. For some people, this is the greatest action fight in boxing history. Muhammad Lopez too, okay? It was in McAfee, New Jersey, where light heavyweight king Matthew Saad Muhammad met old foe Yaki Lopez in a rematch of a North American Boxing Federation title fight. And that was not a bad fight itself, but it was a fight that would be thoroughly eclipsed by the X-rated violence that would go down in the rematch between these two. Now making the 4th defense of his 175-pound title, Muhammad, who had carved out a reputation as a must-watch warrior, who had an astonishing ability at turning a losing fight around, of being able to save a seemingly lost cause, would score his most. You had to see it to believe it comeback out of his career in this one. One of those you had to see it to believe it fights. Okay. Now, Yaki Lopez was tough, but Matthew Saad Muhammad wasn't human. That's how it looked in this titanic battle. The first 7 rounds flew by, the action close and ultra competitive. Then in the 8th round, the fight reached a whole other level, a level of back and forth warfare rarely seen. Saad Muhammad came out fast at the start of the round, looking to work Lopez over. Lopez had worked his way to a good lead, and now Muhammad was looking to make his latest big fight turnaround. He was famous for doing that, and he was in this fight, he was looking to make his latest, okay? Lopez, bleeding, let his own mitts go in fast, accurate fashion. But Saad Muhammad, fighting as though this was the final round, drove Lopez into the ropes. Lopez roared back. Saad Muhammad came back again himself, and he was cracking home with hooks to the body and head. It was that kind of fight. Back and forth action. Then, Lopez let loose with a brutal salvo of hurtful shots that would almost certainly have finished plenty of other fighters. Lopez was hitting Saad Muhammad with everything, with both hands, with Lopez scoring with something like 25 to 30 punches, unanswered. Saad Muhammad was a beaten man, surely. But no, after taking a heck of a going over, the Philly legend, his head snapping back, his gas tank seemingly empty, came back hard. Chopping away, Saad Muhammad forced Lopez back to the ropes again. Lopez, no doubt, in a state of disbelief after the working over he had just gave Muhammad, right? And Saad Muhammad finished the round by landing more hurt on the man who had been battering him almost senseless just mere seconds earlier. Okay? If Hagler Hearns is the greatest round of boxing ever seen, round 8 of Saad Muhammad Lopez 2 gives it a heck of a run for its money. Lopez was still in the fight during the following rounds, and the action was still top-notch. But Saad Muhammad was now in control, and slowly but surely, he was wearing his man down. In round 14, Saad Muhammad sent Lopez down no less than 4 times. But the tough Mexican showed amazing heart by getting up time and time again. But eventually, the referee had to do the human thing and stop the fight. Okay? It was a fight that people who were there or who watched live on TV will never, ever forget. Quite simply, Matthew Saad Muhammad gave us a fight that forever cemented his reputation as one of the most never-say-die fighters who ever lived. Muhammad, more so than at any other time in his career, that was filled with these kind of comeback fights, okay? But this one just topped them all. Okay? Yeah, Muhammad, more so than at any other time in a career that was filled with epic mid-fight comebacks, this was the fight that he earned that Miracle Mike Matt nickname. This one right here. We saw Muhammad got the stoppage, but it was amazing. The punishment these two warriors put on each other. And there's your winner, Matthew Saad Muhammad, of the Fight of the Day today. Okay, we're going to highlight some light heavyweights today, but first, it's going to be a hike through light heavyweight history. Okay? A hike through light heavyweight history. It's going to be the first thing. Now, that's the first ever light heavyweight champion there, Jack Root. Okay? Yeah, he was the first. And Monday, we're going to look at the first ever champion from every weight class. That's going to be Monday. But first, a hike through light heavyweight history. Then we're going to talk about the great light heavyweight Billy Conn. They gave Joe Louis a run for his money. Got greedy. We're going to take a look at his entire career, not just that fight, though. Okay. A hike through light heavyweight history. Start things off. Just a little history about the division, that's all. Yeah, that's Jack Root, the first ever light heavyweight champion. Now, the light heavyweights, the small big men, it's the division that's often been overlooked, mainly because it was always sandwiched between the more glamorous, when they had the original 8 middleweight and heavyweight divisions. And a lot of the men who have held the world light heavyweight title have not been really interested in it, preferring to mix it up with the bigger guys for bigger purposes. But it's also a division that has been graced by its share of real legends. Now, why doesn't light heavyweight grab our attention? With the possible exception of bantamweight, light heavyweight is the most unobserved of the original 8 weight classes. Even the flyweights gained more fascination if we hear the words for the World Heavyweight Championship. We're usually instantly hooked, right? But insert the word light between world and heavyweight, and some fans nod off immediately and stop paying attention. Put the word light in there. But now here's a brief, semi-serious history. And for the sake of our own sanity, we're only dealing with the lineal light heavyweight title here, and not the countless claimants who actually just had an alphabet title. Only lineal champions, okay? Now, the light heavyweight division was apparently the idea of Lou Hausman, a Chicago journalist who happened to be the manager of Jack Root. And Jack Root, that's Jack on the screen there. Jack Root was too big to be a middleweight and too small to be a heavyweight. Imagine that. Having an entire weight division created just for you. We have to be surprised it's a trend that never caught on. Don King could have created a whole bunch of new weight classes so everyone in his stable could be a champion. Yeah, but this guy's manager created light heavyweight just for him because he was right, the original 8. He was right there, too big to be a middleweight, too small to be a heavyweight. So his manager created light heavyweight, right in the middle, okay? Yeah, Don King, it's the one that didn't become a trend. You know, Don could have had a weight class for each of his fighters. Everybody would have been a champion. But, you know, more titles, more sanctioning fees, more money, you know. But of course, at the beginning of 1903, there were only 6 divisions, and light heavyweight made it 7, okay? Flyweight was not established yet, but it was on the way. Flyweight was the 8th of the original 8, okay? Flyweight, original 8, flyweight, bantamweight, lightweight, welterweight, middleweight, light heavyweight, heavyweight. I missed one. Flyweight, bantamweight, lightweight, welterweight, middleweight, light heavyweight, heavyweight. Strawweight, I guess. Yeah, it would have been the 8th one of the original 8. Okay. So yeah, light heavyweight was the 7th one. Flyweight was the last of the original 8. So yeah, Jack Root's manager created this division just for him because he was right between middleweight and heavyweight. Okay. Now Jack Root beat Kid McCoy to become the first champion in the new 175-pound class. Right? Wouldn't have been something if his manager created it for him and then he would have lost that first championship fight. But he won it. He became the first champion. And the title quickly passed to George Gardner and then to Bob Fitzsimmons. Okay? Yeah, Bob was another famous champion. There's Bob right there. He was the first 3-division world champion. So he ended up going to Bob Fitzsimmons. Okay? And Bob probably forgot he had it until he got around to making his first defense 2 years later in 1905. He didn't make his first defense for 2 years. Yeah, he forgot he had it, right? Made his first defense in 1905. Significantly, with his win over Gardner, Fitzsimmons became boxing's first 3-division world champion, right? Now we have to wonder, at that time, did he really know the significance of this achievement he had made, right? First 3-division champion. Probably didn't. There should be no doubt about Bob Fitzsimmons' greatness. So he was past his prime by this time, and he lost the title to Philadelphia Jack O'Brien. Okay? So Fitzsimmons lost it to Jack O'Brien. Now, O'Brien was outstanding, but he never really bothered with the light heavyweight title, preferring to go after Tommy Burns' heavyweight title. You know, the more money was up at the heavyweight division. And, you know, the man that had it didn't even really defend it or anything. So the light heavyweight division could have fizzled out right then. Okay, but it didn't. But after the guy beat Fitzsimmons, he really didn't defend it because he was more interested in fighting at heavyweight. And then the light heavyweight championship finally resurfaced in 1912 when Jack Dillon won it. And some sources identify his win over Hugo Kelly as a title fight, whereas others recognize him as the champion after he beat Battler Levinsky and Bob Bohar in 1914. Either way, Dillon ended up as the next champion. Now, Dillon was the epitome of toughness. And during his peak, he fought more times in 1 year than some modern day fighters do in their entire careers, right? And then the title passed from Dillon to Levinsky, Georges Carpenter, Battling Siki, Mike Mattig, Paul Berlenbach, and Jack Delaney. Of this group, Carpenter and Siki are the most colorful characters. Carpenter was a dashing war hero, the idol of France, and is best known for being flattened by Jack Dempsey in the shot at the heavyweight title. And yet, that was the first $1 billion gate. Carpenter is famous for that. He was the other half of the first $1 million gate, along with Jack Dempsey. First $1 million gate in boxing history was that fight, okay? He had moved up to heavyweight by then. Now, his loss to Siki was a big upset and likely reduced a lot of women to tears because he was handsome and they loved him, right? As for Siki, he was no choir boy. He went through women and alcohol as if his life depended on it. And he had a pet lion and sadly ended up broke and was stabbed to death in a street fight. Okay? So Delaney relinquished the title in 1927 to pursue heavyweight riches. That's what a lot of light heavyweights did back then. They would just give the light heavyweight title up because the money was at heavyweight, right? So Delaney relinquished the light heavyweight title in 1927 to pursue heavyweight riches. But it did not stay vacant for long, okay? That's when Tommy Loughran was generally recognized as the new champion when he beat former champion Mike McTeague. Now, Loughran may have lacked charisma, but certainly not talent, and scored some impressive wins, including one over future heavyweight champion James J. Braddock, the Cinderella Man. And Loughran had a win over middleweight champion, a toy bulldog, Mickey Walker. So he beat some big names, and won over Leo Lomsky, from which he had to get up from a pair of first-round knockdowns to win on points. And as per the norm, Loughran did the same thing that the rest of the light heavyweight champions was doing. He vacated to go up to the glory division heavyweight, right? As per the norm, he vacated to go to heavyweight, okay? So the light heavyweight's title was vacant again, okay? Okay, let me refresh the chat, see if I don't want to miss anybody coming in. There we go. Now, as is often the case when a champion vacates, every man, woman, and child in the civilized world scrambled to claim the title. Eventually, Slapsy Maxie Rosenblum gained universal recognition when he beat Lou Scarza in 1932. And with a nickname like Slapsy Maxie, he was never going to amaze boxing fans with devastating knockouts. Slapsy Maxie lost the title to the utterly forgettable Bob Olin, who then lost it to John Henry Lewis, yet another low-key protagonist. None of these guys are afforded much space in the boxing history books, right? None of these are household names. Now he's getting ready to get up into some to the era when some recognizable names started getting the light heavyweight title. And John Henry Lewis, he had it, but he did the same thing everybody else was doing. He vacated to go up to heavyweight. And John Henry Lewis went to heavyweight and got crushed by the awesome Joe Louis in a shot at the heavyweight crown. And he subsequently retired due to failing eyesight. So he had the title, but after he got crushed by Joe Louis, that's when he vacated it. He didn't go back down to light heavyweight. He vacated it because his eyesight was failing. Okay. William Old School in the building. What's up, Old School? Talking about each Friday we're going through all the divisions. We're down to light heavyweight. And we just doing a little brief history of the light heavyweight division now, Old School, but salute. And it's Friday. The Angry White Men tonight. Old School is one half along with D1 tonight at 10 o'clock. Salute, Old School. Okay, so yeah. When the light heavyweight division first came into being, everybody that got it didn't keep it long. They kept vacating because the money was at heavyweight. So now John Henry Lewis did the same thing. He vacated to fight Joe Louis at heavyweight. Okay, so it's vacant again. So Billy Conn came in. And we're going to do a little piece on Billy too. Billy Conn was acknowledged as the next light heavyweight champion when he beat Melio Bettina. Right? Now, as is the curse of the light heavyweight division, Conn was a genuinely gifted title holder, but guess what? He vacated and became better known for his failed attempt at taking Joe Louis's heavyweight championship. Right? He vacated to go up and fight Joe Louis. That was the norm back then. You know, light heavyweight was right there under heavyweight, and that's where the money was at, heavyweight. So every time somebody won the light heavyweight title, they always ended up vacating, going to heavyweight. So Billy Conn was just the latest one in a long line of fighters that did that. But he went up to fight Joe Louis. So now, Gus Lesnovich, yet another light heavyweight kingpin, who was hardly a household name, was awarded acceptance as the next champion after he beat either Anton Christoforidis or Tammy Moriello. It's not clear, depending on which historian you wish to follow. Okay. Now, with Joe Louis reigning above him as a heavyweight champion, and the fantastic Tony Zell Rocky Graziano trilogy unfolded below him at the same time, it is not a shock to see why Paul Lesnovich was lost in the middle, right? You know, it was still the original 8, and Joe Louis was a heavyweight, and Rocky Graziano and Tony Zell trilogy was going on at middleweight, so the light heavyweight champion was forgotten. Nobody paid him much attention. So after that, Freddie Mills beat Lesnovich. And Mills' less than earth-shattering reign ended when he was beaten by Joey Maxim. So now we're getting up into some recognizable names, right? Joey Maxim beat Lesnovich for the light heavyweight title. And here we have a full-blown classic fight. Maxim's defense against Sugar Ray Robinson. This one is always talked about, but think about it. How many of the greatest fighters of all time have been at light heavyweight, right? When we bring up the subject of a classic, we immediately consider Ali Frazier 1 and 3, Ali Foreman, Hagler Hearns, Dempsey Firpo, Gans Nelson, Leonard Hearns 1, Robinson LaMotta, and so on. Classics are somewhat scarce at 175 pounds. Think also of the great rivalries such as Zell Graziano, Ali Norton, Bonnie Ross, Jimmy McLaurin, Sandy Sadler, Willie Pep, etc. Where are the light heavyweights at? Okay. So Joey Maxim was the latest. So then enter Archie Moore. The legendary Archie Moore beat Joey Maxim 3 times. But this does not qualify as a timeless rivalry because it was a light heavyweight. Any other weight class, it would be a classic. But even when Archie Moore beat Joey Maxim, people don't even look at that as a classic trilogy. Now, Archie was nearing the pipe and slipper stage of his life when he became world champion, but he totally dominated the division. He was 39 years old when he got his first shot, and he kept it for 10 years. Archie defeated, that's Archie and Harold Johnson there. Now, Archie Moore, he defeated all the top contenders around and engaged in another light heavyweight classic. Now, this one was a classic. His first fight was Yvonne Durrell. Archie climbed off the floor 4 times to win the fight. And he kept on defending the title until he became too ancient to do so. And there's no denying his excellence. Archie fought in 4 decades, 1935 to 1963, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. He was about 80 when he retired. No, 50s. He was in his 50s, though. So then Harold Johnson, after Archie finally gave it up, Harold Johnson became the latest. That's him, and that's Harold and Archie right there on the screen. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah. We're back. Back in it to win it. Okay, where were we? Looks like everybody left. Okay, let's try. Okay, we were up to Virgil Hill. Now, a lot of people, yeah, Virgil Hill had, we're just doing lineal, so he wasn't lineal, but some people say he had more than 14 defenses. But counting the lineals, Bob Foster had the record 14 consecutive title defenses at light heavyweight, okay? So, Foster was another who craved heavyweight stardom. So he went up to heavyweight, but he came up short, losing to Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier. Yeah, he lost to both of them, Ali and Frazier. Mike Mazik, salute, Mike. How are you? Having a little connection problems today, but we're going to try to work our way through it. Talking about the light heavyweights. So we're up to Bob Foster around the 60s, early 70s as champion. And just like they used to do in the old days, Bob wanted the heavyweight fame, so he went up to heavyweight, lost to Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier. Okay? So, okay, bear with me for a moment, please. Okay. Okay, so when Foster retired in 1974, who became the next light heavy world champion is questionable. Some sources, including the Ring magazine, endorsed Matthew Saad Muhammad. That's Matthew Saad Muhammad right there, when he beat Marvin Johnson in 1979. Now, Muhammad was a thrill-a-minute slugger who specialized in come-from-behind victories. His run came to an end when he was beaten by Dwight Muhammad Qawi. Okay? He was beaten by Qawi. But other sources do not recognize either of these guys as a true champion. Instead, they distinguish Qawi's 1983 showdown with Michael Spinks as being for the vacant world championship, which Spinks won. Okay? Now, there's certainly no question over Spinks' status, and his herky-jerky style was quite unique. Okay? No one knew what to expect. Okay, bear with me for a moment, please. Coming to an end on this. Yeah, but around the 80s, everybody recognized Michael Spinks. And the 80s, like the best decade all for light heavyweights, and Spinks was at the top of it. Okay. Yeah, Michael Spinks, okay, he came along, and him and Qawi had their situation, okay, and Spinks won the fight with Qawi. In 1985, Spinks achieved what no light heavyweight champion had ever done before. He won the world heavyweight title while he was still light heavyweight champion, and that was lineal too. He beat Larry Holmes, okay? So, naturally, with heavyweight fame beckoning, Spinks abdicated his light heavyweight title and predictably, there was mass confusion with the alphabet groups frantically filling vacancies like pigs at a trough, trying to see who the champion was going to be. Thereafter, there was no clear-cut lineage, and Boxing Illustrated magazine, which was naming one rightful world champion per division, had their light heavyweight title vacant during this period. Finally, in November 1996, something happened, and this is where things get a little tricky. Actually, make that very tricky. Basically, there are two scenarios, each with a degree of credibility, and each going in different directions. The first scenario, Virgil Hill and Henry Mask fought each other in Germany, and the winner, Hill, was back as a new world champion at light heavyweight. In June 1997, he lost to Darius Michalczewski, and Michalczewski embarked on a quest to defend against the most obscure challengers he could find, okay? Yeah, he was fighting nobody, basically. And this thing is all out of whack. Okay, bear with me again. Okay, yeah, here we go. Yeah, and Michalczewski fulfilled this quest by finding the likes of Duran Center and Muslim Barcelona to pound on. Who were these guys, and what had they done to earn a title shot? Maybe nobody knows, okay? Regardless, Michalczewski cruised along until he was defeated by Julio Gonzalez, who in turn was defeated by Zasalt Erdel. Okay? And from that point on, Erdel was considered the champion. Then the second scenario was Virgil Hill while he was facing Mass during the same month as Michalczewski was winning the title. That's when Roy Jones, here you go where I'm at right here. Okay. A certain Roy Jones was outpointing Mike McCallum. Now, Hill could not be recognized as world champion with Roy Jones on the scene. We had to hold out for a Hill-Jones showdown. However, going into 1997, Hill lost to Michalczewski, and Jones lost to Montel Griffin. So much for that matchup. But Jones did beat Griffin in a rematch. So we then had to wait for a Jones-Michalczewski fight. But that wasn't happening. Now, while it could be argued that Michalczewski's momentum disappeared as he continued to face no hopers, Jones rose to greater heights with wins over Hill and Del Valle. Meanwhile, Reggie Johnson penetrated the scene with wins over William Guthrie, Ole Kmetson, and Willie Taylor. Was this enough to overtake Michalczewski? Assuming that it was, we could consider that when Johnson faced Jones in June 1999, this could be viewed as being for the vacant light heavyweight championship. Jones won and reigned supreme until Tarver beat him in 2004. Tarver consequently lost and won against Glenn Johnson, and then he was outpointed by Bernard Hopkins. So we stopped right there. Rightfully, Bernard Hopkins ended up as the champion back around that time frame, okay? So which scenario was most acceptable? Do we opt for Hopkins or Erdel, the two who ended up with the belts? The Ring magazine recognized Bernard Hopkins as the real champion at that time. And when Hopkins took the crown from Tarver, The ring announcer had billed Tarver as the unheralded, recognized light heavyweight champion of the world. But of course, Erdell had his supporters too. Basically, it was a subjective issue. Okay? The key is whether or not Jones' entry into the 175-pound division was relevant. In November 1996, could Hill have been regarded as the real world champion with Jones in the picture? It would have been so simple if Hill, after beating Mass, had fought Jones right away. But when is anything ever simple in boxing? At the time, in terms of pure talent, Jones was way ahead of both Hill and Mass, okay? He was that rare, special kind of fighter that only comes along once in a generation. Maybe anything involved in the World Light Heavyweight Championship had to include him, okay? So whether you supported Hopkins or Erdell as the champion at that time, or you didn't really care, the light heavyweight division has an intriguing history. No, it's never had the glitz or the excitement of the heavyweight or middleweight division, but it has boasted Hall of Famers like Archie Moore, Bob Foster, Michael Spinks, and Tommy Loughran, and memorable battles like Spinks Quawi, Moore Durrell won, and Johnson Tarver won, and some title holders like Jack Dillon and Joey Maxim are well worth a second look. Perhaps light heavyweight is one for the connoisseur. If you agree or disagree, it's okay. Either way, because boxing wouldn't be as much fun with nothing to debate about. And Monday, we're going to have the first champion in each weight division. Monday, the first champion in each weight division. So now let's talk about Billy Conn. That's Billy Conn right there. He was the light heavyweight back in the 40s that took on Joe Louis and was beating him, okay? Until he got greedy in round 13. He almost changed history. Remember, we wouldn't have had that 12-year reign for Joe Louis, the 25 straight title defenses. None of that damn near didn't happen, right? If Billy Conn would have kept on boxing like he was and not got greedy. But what happened, and he didn't beat Joe. Joe Louis ended up knocking him out. So we're going to talk about Billy Conn and including that fight. Hopefully we can get through this. Okay, Billy Conn. That's Billy Conn on the screen there. He said he had movie star looks and all that kind of stuff, but he was a boxer. Tough guy too. Yeah. Yep. Okay, let's get into it. Now, we all have great ideas. The perfect excuse to pinch a day off work that loses its credibility the second we get on the phone with the boss, right? The get rich scheme that melts into reality as soon as we mail the letter and sobered up. Billy Conn had a far greater notion. He got it into his head that he could knock out Joe Louis. And his ace announcer, Don Dunphy, famously said he was a cocky young kid from Pittsburgh who very nearly did it, okay? Who very nearly did it. Now we see Billy Conn trotting down a staircase in a rare old photograph, looking handsome and dapper in one of the snazzy, snappy outfits of the day. The striking face beams contentedly. The lean and muscular body tapers down into an almost womanly waist. The great and wide shoulders bust out east and west, like Jimmy Conn as Sonny Corleone from The Godfather. As a pinup, Billy knocked Paul Newman, Robert Redford, and Brad Pitt into the proverbial cocked hat. The fighters aren't supposed to look that good, But when Billy hung him up after 77 pro fights against some of the toughest guys on the block, the mischievous matinee idol face was still intact. That achievement had a lot to do with the fact that Billy at his sublime and evasive best was near impossible to hit. Okay? Some achievement indeed for a guy who was born in Pittsburgh in the rough old days of 1917 and got into scraps virtually from the time he could stand up. Okay? The guy was fighting from the time he could walk, damn near. Now, Billy never did stop swinging. At the age of 72, 3 years before his premature death from pneumonia, 72 years old now, listen to this, 72 years old. He was drinking a coffee and glancing at the newspaper stand. He was at the newspaper stand reading his local paper. He was reading his local newspaper at the convenience store in Pittsburgh, 72 years old, when a robber suddenly punched the store manager. Billy answered the clang of the bell and did his thing. 72 years old, remember? He slugged and wrestled the young robber to the floor and was still giving a pretty decent account of himself when the robber thought better of it and ran away. 72-year-old man, right? The robber said, nah, I'd have had enough of this old timer, and he got out of Dodge. Okay. You can't take the Irish out of an Irishman. Okay. Okay, Old School says he got to get back to work. Appreciate you, Old School, for stopping through today. Okay, Old School be on tonight at 10. The Angry White Man podcast along with D1. Okay, appreciate you, Old School. Yeah. So Billy was 72 years old. A guy tried to rob the convenience store where he just happened to be in. And he jumped on the guy, was getting the better of it. And the guy, like 50 years younger than him, ran. Got out of Dodge. Mm-hmm. They said you can't take the Irish out of an Irishman. Now, Joe Louis tried his best on that famous night at the Polo Grounds, but telling Billy Conn not to be brave or reckless was akin to telling Stuart the Kid Unger not to play cards. It is too bad that the only film ever shown of Billy Conn in compilation clips these days is of the brown bomber rifling him to the deck with that series of deadly shots that sent Billy into dreamland to slow and almost theatrical fashion. Yeah, that's about the only film we got of Billy was when he was getting knocked up by Joe Louis. Now, Billy Conn was an unbeatable light heavyweight at his glorious peak. Folks in the know will also tell you that he could have been one of the great middleweights if fate and biology had to shape a different destiny for him. It was not impossible for Billy to follow any other path than that of a professional boxer, okay? Before beginning to ply his trade in the more traditional rope square, he had fought and scrapped in the biggest ring of all, a sprawling ring of irony, whose ethical boundary lines served as irresistible challenges for every fighting young tough who wanted to test his fists and his mettle against opponents of every color and creed. This was the ring of Pittsburgh, and Conn was an Irish American with the usual fiery tendencies. The backdrop was tailor-made. The script was perfect. Billy, by his own modest admission, couldn't even fight when he started brawling for the first time, but he enjoyed the cut and thrust of a good battle and was eager to learn more. He also possessed the curiously lovable logic of a fighting man. Why work for a living when you could grind and sweat in the toughest game of all? Billy didn't want to spend his life sitting in an office or toiling for a pittance in a factory. He wanted to become the best boxer he could possibly be and move himself into the far distant world of big money, nice clothes, and all the other pleasant luxuries that come from success. Billy wanted this fast too, and regarded amateur boxing as nothing more than an inconvenient roadblock. He bypassed amateur boxing completely after trying out at his local gym and making the decision to commit to a pro career. Didn't even stop at the amateurs, went immediately into the pro ranks, Billy did. Okay? What's up, Al Booger? Yeah, you had to beat the champ, Mike. That's right. Had to beat him. You wasn't getting no split decisions or nothing like that against the champion. You had to convincingly beat him. Let's salute Al Booger. Talked about some light heavyweights today. Billy Conn now. He didn't even have an amateur career. He wanted to get straight to the money. Billy did. So he went straight to the pro career. Now, Billy quite literally made it up as he went along in his virgin soldier years. He was 16 years old when he turned pro, and he was playing a brave game of bluff against older and tougher opponents. He knew he needed experience and would have to take some hard knocks before breaking free from the launch pad, okay? Yeah, he left ahead like a on-the-job training type situation. He dropped the decision in his pro debut to Dick Woodward at Fairmont in West Virginia, a place of poor people living in quiet desperation. Billy was determined not to be knocked off the ladder and settle for that kind of life. He knew he would improve if he kept punching and learning and mixing it up with the best opponents his manager and trainer, Johnny Ray, could find for him, okay? It is him and Johnny Ray, his manager and trainer. Mm-hmm. So Billy said he just had to keep fighting. He was going to get better. And that's what he did. Okay? Johnny Ray coached Billy constantly, okay, on the road, and was well qualified to do so. Born Harold Pittler, Johnny had been a good class Pittsburgh lightweight himself, who had engaged in nearly 140 professional fights and caught swords with such titans of the game as Johnny Dundee, George K.O. Chaney, and Johnny Kilbane. So his manager and trainer, Johnny Ray, had been in there with some big names. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, he sure had. Billy lost 7 of his first 15 fights as he soaked up Johnny Ray's wisdom and tried to transfer the knowledge into fluid and instinctive moves. Okay? 7 of his first 15 fights he lost. Started out 8-7. Nobody would even dream of doing that nowadays. You got to be like 23-0 before you get your first title shot. Right? On the way up, they ain't taking no chances on losing. That's just the sign of the time. But Billy's first 15 fights, he was 8-7. But Billy was getting noticed as a skillful and willing youngster who couldn't hit with great force, but could fight like a tiger when the going got tough. So even though he was taking all those losses, he was still getting noticed, right? He won a decision over Johnny Byrack in a cracking 6-rounder at the Motor Square Garden in Pittsburgh in January 1935, the year in which Billy really began to take off, 1935. Like a prisoner, busting free of his chains, Billy shrugged off his novice's garb and suddenly became a consistent winner. In 1936, he won a couple of thrilling decisions over Lewis Cook at the Northside Arena and followed up with another quality win over General Burroughs, which drew the attention of the local media, okay? Billy was beginning to be hailed as a genuine talent who would go far. He was maturing into a very clever boxer who could move quickly and adroitly, possessed a fine repertoire of moves and punches, and had an excellent defense. He was speedy with the fists and a very adept sharpshooter at his best. When Billy scored the first of 5 career victories over the tough Honey Boy Jones at Greenlee Park, He seemed to come of age as a fighter and was moving rapidly into the major leagues at that point. Came up the hard way. Fritzy Zivit, future welterweight champion, and a fellow Pittsburgher of Con, Harry Greb, and a few other famous gents from that town, once famously said, "I used to bang them pretty good. You're not playing the piano." In 1936, Fritzy was already banging them pretty good, even though he was still 5 years away from dethroning the great Henry Armstrong. When Zivit met Con at Duquesne Gardens in Pittsburgh, 18-year-old Billy was introduced to one of life's classic individuals. With that wry affection that old fighters reserve for each other, Con would later recall that Zivit did everything but kick him. Fritzy, one of the all-time great tough guys, certainly saw nothing untoward in taking the handsome youngster's face and creatively smashing it in. Zivit also rearranged any other part of Con that he could reach with the assorted implements of his mischievous toolbox. In 30 frenetic minutes, Billy was given an entire university course on boxing by an old-fashioned lecturer who worked to the theory that students learned much faster if they were repeatedly beaten about the head and verbally abused. Amazingly, Billy retained enough of his vital parts to win a split decision, okay? He beat Fritzy Zivit. Billy was moving up fast now and mixing with the cream of a truly golden age in boxing. He posted a couple of close but important decisions over Vince Dundee and the wonderfully talented Teddy Yaros. But the going got tougher as the quality of competition became richer. Billy always had trouble with Yaros, okay? He pipped Teddy in a return match over 15 rounds at Duquesne Gardens, rallying strongly over the last 3 rounds. But the fans didn't appreciate that decision. Teddy got his own back, winning a 12-rounder at Forbes Field in the final encounter between the two men. The deep waters of a mighty impressive ocean of talent were providing Billy with a tough but priceless boxing education, okay? Billy was decked and outpointed by the sorely underrated young Corbett III in August 1937. But the Pittsburgh kid learned from his mistakes and clearly mastered Corbett in the return fight. Then came another wise, bruising ring mechanic in Solly Krieger, who knocked Billy down in the 8th round and won a wide decision in the first fight of their trilogy. Now, Billy was always annoyed with himself over that fight. He wasn't in shape, and Krieger just banged on the kid all night long. Solly could take a shot as well as he could get one, and Billy could only take his punishment and chalk it up to experience. Okay, so now we coming up to when he became a champion. He was the complete fighter by the time he completed his next assignment by notching his second win over Solly Krieger. Billy gave a brilliant exhibition of boxing as he did pretty much as he pleased and almost pitched a shutout. The Pittsburgh kid was about to win the crown. Okay, he was about to get his first title. Billy was. It seems hard to believe that the battle-hardened Billy Conn was still only 21 years of age. After all of this, he was still only 21, okay? When he ruled the light heavyweight roost after outpointing the tough Melio Bettina. But there was no money to be made in the graveyard of that division, and Billy knew it. He also knew that it was in the form of his life and might as well go fishing for the sharks. And he wanted the biggest shark out there, the mighty brown bomber, Joe Louis. Okay? And Billy was very confident of his chances against the heavyweights, and he continued on his merry way, a fighter on a roll. Okay? He decisioned Patina again, made 2 defenses against the tough Gus Lesnovich. Then he moved up to heavyweight. Okay? Moved to heavyweight. the Joe Lewis fight. Okay, let's get to the Joe Lewis fight. Okay. Okay, Billy became champion at light heavyweight. Then he moved up to heavyweight to challenge Joe Lewis. Okay. Moved up to heavyweight to challenge the Brown Bomber. Okay, so there's a gorgeous precocity to youth. We've all of the fight. One of them days. I'm glad it's Friday. Billy Conn versus Joe Lewis now. Let me hurry up so we can get this in. The fight. Okay. Conn versus Lewis. So wonder anybody's still in here. Okay. The fight. Now, for all his youthful gung-ho, Billy Conn was not a foolish man in his judgment of fellow fighters, most especially the great Joe Lewis, okay? Billy had the utmost respect for Joe, which was clearly apparent in the early rounds. The popular misconception of the fight is that Conn sailed away from Joe from the opening bell and was a country mile ahead when the guillotine dropped on him in that fateful 13th round. This was not the case. It is also a myth that Lewis could not have won the fight on points. Yeah, I was kind of like thinking that too, that he was far behind, but let's see what happened. This is the true story right here from a very reliable source, okay? Yeah, it's a myth. Joe still, although he was behind, he still could win the fight on points because At the time that he stopped Billy Conn, it was the 13th round. Billy was ahead on all three cards by scores of 7-5, 7-4-1, and one card was 6-6 at the end of it when Joe stopped it. Now, Joe would have had to sweep the last 3 rounds, and then he could have got a draw, 8-7 on one card, 9-6 on one. Okay. But he needed to win all 3 of the last rounds. Okay. Billy had the fight well in hand. And if he would have kept boxing like he did throughout the fight, no way Joe Louis would have swept them 3 rounds. But Billy all of a sudden wanted to go toe-to-toe. That's why I always say he had to fight one. Because the way he was winning rounds against Joe Louis, it was no way Joe Louis was going to sweep the last 3 rounds, which he would have had to do to win the fight. Okay. It's a myth when you say Joe Louis he didn't need a knockout, but he did have to win all 3 of those last rounds. So, people that say Billy had to fight one is kind of right if he would have kept boxing. You are kind of right when you say that. Okay. Here we go. Okay, there we go. Come on. Yeah, I got it. I was trying to get the chat back up. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Okay, let's go. Let's continue. Yeah, Joe didn't need a knockout, but he needed all 3 of those last rounds to win on points. So, now in the first 2 rounds, it seemed that Billy might not get through 5 rounds. Now, Billy could always move, but how he moved in those opening 2 rounds, right? For all the reports that Joe had looked sluggish in his training, he was all business as he forced Billy to beat a hasty retreat. A big right hand from Louis at the end of the first round seemed to be a harbinger of imminent doom for Billy. In the second round, Billy's nimble footwork couldn't keep him away from Joe's left hook, but it was a right to the stomach from Louis that brought a gasp from the ringsiders. It was a painful, perfectly placed punch, and Billy bent from his terrific force. Billy's trainer, but the fancy stuff was getting the kid nowhere. Catching fire from his frustration, Billy rattled Joe with a quick combination. It didn't seem like much at the time, but thereafter, the pattern of the fight shifted dramatically in Billy's favor. Okay, after he caught Joe in the 3rd round, the fight started shifting toward Billy. Now, Billy was through with running. It simply hadn't worked. In the following rounds, he stood his ground more and placed his faith in his reflexes and quick punching. In effect, he became the aggressor, but with careful thought and intelligence. Okay? Billy brought a very effective uppercut into play, which repeatedly caught Joe and clearly threw him off his game. Okay? The Brown Bomber realized the seriousness of his situation and knew that he couldn't afford to allow Billy too much more slack because Billy was piling up the rounds, okay? By that 13th, Joe didn't need a knockout, but remember, he needed all 3 of those rounds. So then Joe started attacking earnestly in the 6th round, bringing out the heavy artillery to cut Billy, and he kept Billy under pressure. Okay? Joe started coming with the pressure. Noticeably, however, the cocky Pittsburgh kid was not only standing up to the punishment, but also making the Brown Bomber look ponderous and awkward. Joe was missing widely at times and being outfought on the inside. It was a wonderfully intriguing and exciting battle, all action and effort from the very contrasting craftsmen. Okay? the crowd was seeing what every crowd loves to see. David was beating Goliath and edging his way ever more tantalizingly closer towards the finishing line. He was doing it in style too. Billy was fearless. It was as if the gods themselves had given him the green light and told him that nothing could go wrong. In the 11th and 12th rounds, Joe Louis seemed to be doubting his ability to lasso the cheeky kid who was threatening to bump him off the throne. This was for the heavyweight title, okay? Joe was hesitant and unsure in the 12th round. Anything but the punching machine that had blasted and chopped his way through a succession of other hopefuls, okay? Billy just kept coming, scoring with his stream of educated shots as the crowd's approval thundered around the polo grounds. The crowd was going wild. David was beating Goliath, okay? Edging so closer to that 15th round. But then, all of a sudden, when Billy came out for the 13th round, it was with 3 simple words from his trainer, Johnny Ray, in his ears. When he came out for the 13th round, Johnny Ray told the fool, "Don't get careless." And Billy came out there and did the opposite. He came out there and got careless. His trainer, last thing he told him before he came out for 13, "Don't get careless." And Billy did the exact opposite, came out there and got careless. He simply couldn't help himself. He had been punching prudently, but suddenly he was just punching, convinced he could take out one of the greats, the Brown Bomber himself. Now, Joe Louis, whether alert or snoozing, one of the best finishers in the boxing history, could always sniff out a man in distress. And Joe Louis sensed Billy had strayed out of the safe zone. And Joe all of a sudden started taking the incoming fire and waiting his moment, because he sensed Billy had strayed out of the safe zone after his trainer told him, "Don't get careless." And Joe sensed it. Joe started biding his time. He drove Billy back with a powerful left hook, and the final act began to play out. What normal people don't see, fighters do see. Joe Louis had seen the subtly uncertain look in Billy's eyes, the uncertain little jig of his legs as he retreated. Okay? Oh, I already put the end result on there, yeah. Joe saw the uncertain little jig in his legs when he retreated. Then Joe opened up with the big guns, and Billy responded with one last defiant burst of fighting courage. But it was over. It was over because he did the opposite of what his trainer told him. He shouted at him when he was on the way out for the 13th, "Don't get careless." And he went out there and got careless. And it was over. No, OVA, over. It was over for Billy, right? He had stumbled into the minefield and he could no longer tiptoe around the sleeping explosions. Suddenly, he wavered and wobbled, hit by a paralyzing left to the stomach. He seemed to hang there forever until the Brown Bomber snapped his strings and put him to sleep with a thunderous right to the jaw. Okay? Yeah. His trainer told him, "Don't get careless," and he went out there and did the opposite, got careless, man. Years later, Billy reflected on this curtain coming down on him in that 13th round. Older, wiser, and more philosophical, Billy could even manage a chuckle as he spread his hands and said, "I was doing it until wise guy me got fresh and tried to knock Joe out." Billy said, "I was doing it until wise guy me got fresh and tried to knock Joe out." Yeah. Yeah. And there they are after the fight, Billy congratulating him. He realized he messed up. There's Johnny Ray right there. Like I see Johnny over Billy's right shoulder, like, I told you, don't get careless. And there's Jack Blackburn behind Joe, his trainer. And I know Johnny can't wait to get him back there and say, I told you, you had it. Because Joe needed all the last 3 rounds, and the way Billy was boxing, there was no way Joe Louis was going to win all 3 of those rounds. No way. He probably wouldn't have won none of them if Billy had kept boxing like he was boxing brilliantly. He had Joe confused, right? You know, at a loss, didn't know the adjustment to make. And then, you know, that's why I always say, why are you paying your trainer if you're not going to listen to him? Just go in there, will keep the money and don't have a trainer. Why was Billy paying Johnny Ray? If the man tell you don't get careless and you're going to go out there and get careless, you should have just saved that trainer's fee and don't even have a trainer, right? Because clearly the man was telling you the right thing to do. And just think, if he hadn't got careless, man, history would be totally different. We wouldn't have had that 12-year run by Joe Louis. That was right in the middle of it. Wouldn't have had those 25 straight years. But maybe Joe Louis hadn't knocked him out, he would have won those last 3 rounds. But I doubt it. I doubt it. I don't even think he would have won any of them. But yeah, that's what happened. And Billy admitted that he knew he messed up. When he got older, he could even laugh about it. But I know, man, to experience something like that, and then looking back at the run Joe Louis had and realize you could have snapped it right in the middle of it, he got to feel like silly Billy. Silly Billy. Okay, John Conte. This guy, John Conte, was another great. But let's get to Marvin Johnson, you know, because he's the guy on the thumbnail. It's 341. Let's get Marvin in. Marvin Johnson. Yeah, he was a good light heavyweight. Where's Marvin? We got about 20 minutes. Yeah, Marvin's gonna be the last thing. I can't find Marvin. Oh, there's Marvin. Yeah, Marvin Johnson. Part of that great light heavyweight group in the 80s. Just like middleweight was, I say middleweight was the best decade. 50s was the best decade for middleweights. Of course, 70s for the heavyweights. Everybody know that. And then I say 80s for the light heavyweights. And Marvin Johnson was part of that. You know, Marvin Johnson, Michael Spinks was at the top of it. Dwight Muhammad Qawi, Eddie Gregory or Eddie Mustafa Muhammad. Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, Matthew Saad Muhammad, Yaki Lopez, all them guys, man, in the 80s. Bruce Gas could probably name a whole lot more of them if he was in here. Yeah, but yeah, the 80s was it for the light heavyweights, man. And Marvin was part of that. Let's get him in real quick. Only got 20 minutes and I'm still running my mouth instead of getting them up. That's because I can't find it. Oh, there it is. Yeah, Marvin Johnson from Indianapolis, Minnesota. Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm talking about Minneapolis, Minnesota. That's Minneapolis. I always had trouble. Indianapolis and Minneapolis or something like that. I don't know. But y'all know what I'm talking about. Indianapolis is in Indiana. Minneapolis is in Minnesota, right? Indianapolis. That's where Marvin Johnson was from, Indiana. And Indiana was known for basketball, high school basketball. You know, I spent some time there, and man, you know, in the newspapers, well, I know back in the 80s, high school news basketball games would be on the front page news out there in Indiana, man. They don't play when it comes to their high school basketball out there, man. But let's get to Marvin. I guess like high school football in Texas. It's basketball is in Indiana, man. Yeah, they don't play. Okay, your Marvin Johnson. He won 3 titles, 3 crowns and a warrior. 3 crowns and a warrior's heart. The Marvin Johnson story. Yeah, he was a 3-time heavyweight champion. Marvin was. Okay, let's take a look at it. Okay. In the annals of boxing history, few fighters exemplified grit, courage, and determination more than Marvin Johnson. Known for his relentless pressure, iron will, and southpaw stance, Johnson was a three-time world light heavyweight champion whose career spanned the golden era of the division. Fighting during an era stacked with talent, Johnson never backed down from a challenge and built a legacy rooted in both triumph and resilience. Yeah, golden age of the light heavyweights was the 80s. Ain't no doubt about it. Early life and amateur stardom for Marvin. Okay. He was born on April 12, 1954 in Indianapolis, Indiana. Marvin took up boxing at a young age. Fighting out of the Christamore House Boxing Club, he quickly gained a reputation as a rugged, hard-working competitor. Now, boxing is not a big sport in Indiana, like I was saying, where basketball is the king. But by the time Marvin Johnson's career was done, the people of Indianapolis had seen numerous big-time boxing shows headlined by Marvin, right? And he became Indianapolis' favorite son, Marvin Johnson. His amateur career was stellar, capped off by a bronze medal at the 1972 Munich Olympics in the light heavyweight division. He was in those Munich Olympics where the terrorists killed some people, remember? And Marvin performed in Munich. His performance in Munich put him on the radar as one of America's brightest boxing prospects. And he transitioned to the pro ranks shortly after the Olympics. Okay? Now, his early professional career, he had a meteoric rise. Just like his Olympic performance put him on the radar as a top prospect. He had a meteoric rise, Marvin did, yeah. When he took off as a pro. B3, what's up, B3? We just winding down, talking about some light heavyweights today. Marvin Johnson now, he was part of that golden age of the 80s for the light heavyweights. But salute B3. B3 Picks. Got a great show over there. Probably win some money. B3 is your man. Okay? Yeah, but he had a meteoric rise after winning bronze in the Olympics. You know, came in third, but that ain't bad. All them people competing in those divisions in the Olympics. To be number 3 is quite an achievement, you know? Yeah. So early pro career and meteoric rise. Okay. So he turned pro in 1973. And he wasted no time making an impact on the pro game. He reeled off a series of victories with his crowd-pleasing style, non-stop pressure, body punching, and an aggressive southpaw style, right? By the mid-1970s, Marvin was seen as a top contender in the light heavyweight division for their light heavyweight his entire career too. Amateur, everything, just like Hagler at middleweight, yep. Now, one of the first major tests of Marvin's career came in 1977 against Matthew Saad Muhammad. Matthew Saad Muhammad, he was in Matthew Franklin. And Marvin Johnson won that initial encounter by unanimous decision, marking himself as a serious threat to the world title. And him and Saad Muhammad's path would cross again with even more at stake. And remember, light heavyweight also had James Scott, the inmate guy. This guy was so good. The sanctioning bodies, Ring Magazine, all of them had him ranked in the top 10, and he was incarcerated in prison. That's how good he was. The networks, the top contenders, everybody would go into the prison and fight him. And all the other contenders would be there watching, scouting. In the top 10 of all the sanctioning bodies, Ring Magazine, and incarcerated in prison. You got to be good to reach that status. But then he lost a couple big fights and they just took him out of the rankings. Whereas if he was out here on the streets, he would have just dropped lower in the top 10. But once he lost a couple of fights, they couldn't get ready to drop him couldn't wait to drop him like a hot potato because he was incarcerated. But for a while, man, it was quite a story back there in the 80s. Mike Rim, remember it? James Scott was his name. Now, world title glory for Marvin Johnson. He was a 3-time champion, right? His first title win was in 1978, which was the WBC light heavyweight, okay? And his first world championship came December 78. He faced Mate Parlov of Yugoslavia, again, WBC title. And it was in Sicily. And Johnson dominated the fight, scored a 10th round TKO of Parlov, became the WBC world champion. But his reign was short. And Parlov was a pretty good fighter too. His reign was short. And guess who took it? His old rival, Matthew Saad Muhammad. This was their second meeting. First title defense, April 79. An old friend came to town, Matthew Saad Muhammad, in a brutal back and forth war. Johnson started strong, but Saad Muhammad rallied to stop him in the 8th round in one of the division's classics, right? The fight was a testament to the toughness of both men and remains a fan favorite fight to this day. Yeah, and Matthew Saad Muhammad did that so many times. He was in the fight of the day today. He's so much on the brink of losing, and then he would come back and win it. Like that guy we talked about, the Cat, a couple weeks ago for the cruiserweights. Remember, the Cat? I don't think nobody was to the extent of the Cat. He always came back and won, but Saad Muhammad was along those same lines. So he took Johnson's first title. Then his second, because he was a 3-time, second title win was 1980. WBA this time, okay? He was undeterred. The very next year, he returned and captured another world title, this time the WBA version. Beat Victor Galindez, another one of those great light heavyweights. I didn't even mention Victor. Beat Victor by 11th round TKO, right? Victor was an Argentine legend. And he also was a dominant champion. And Marvin's victory over him was a major upset at the time. And it further cemented his place among the sports elite. Okay? Yet again, his time at the top was short. Later the same year, 1980, he lost to Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, formerly Eddie Gregory. Yeah, 11th round TKO. Then the third title win was a few years later, 1986. He got the WBA again, 6 years later. Okay. Several years of ups and downs, Marvin staged a remarkable comeback. February 1986, he defeated Leslie Stewart of Trinidad, right, by a 7th round TKO. This was at his home in Indianapolis. Got the WBA again. This made him a 3-time champion. And he was 31 at that time, right? And he proved he still had what it takes to beat top-level opposition. But, again, his reign was short. All 3 of his reigns was short. And he had a rematch against Stewart later that same year. And Stewart stopped him in the 8th round. I think it was the same round Johnson stopped Stewart in. Yeah, all 3 of his reigns was short, but he was a 3-time champion. Just couldn't hold on to him, you know? Now, his style and legacy. Now, Marvin was never the most technically refined boxer, but his heart, endurance, and pressure fighting style made him a nightmare to deal with. His fights were often wars of attrition, and fans loved his willingness to trade shots and press forward. Like I always say, you got chin and gas tank in every fight, and Marvin had chin and gas tank. You're always in the fight if you got chin and gas tank. He was nicknamed Pops, and he's remembered for being the first light heavyweight to win a world title 3 times, okay? Facing an extraordinary level of competition, including 4 Hall of Famers, okay? Matthew Saad Muhammad, Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, Victor Galindez and Michael Spinks. And he beat two of them. He beat Saad Muhammad and Galindez, right? And representing Indianapolis with pride, fighting many of his major fights in his hometown. And life after boxing for Marvin, okay? Marvin retired from professional boxing in 1987 with a record of 43 wins, 35 by knockout. That's like 83%. I figured it out earlier. See, I got smart today. And 6 losses. I think it's 83.1. You know, and he was a beloved figure in Indianapolis, working with troubled youth and community programs, right? His post-boxing life was marked by humility and service, much like the quiet dignity he carried throughout his career. In the conclusion, now Marvin Johnson may not have had the lengthy reigns of some of his contemporaries, but he fought everyone, feared no one, and won multiple world titles in one of boxing's toughest eras. The golden age of light heavyweights, the best era ever of light heavyweights. He was a 3-time champion. Okay? His legacy is that of a true warrior, a fighter's fighter, whose name is spoken with respect by fans, historians, and his contemporaries alike. Right? In an age of champions, Marvin Johnson stood out not just for his skill, but for his heart. And that's what makes him unforgettable. Marvin Johnson, there he is, 3-time champion. Yeah, Marvin now is works in the community with troubled youth. Stuff. I think he's in his late 60s. What's up, Just Do Boxing in the building? Salute coming up in minutes. Okay. Yeah, we was on the light heavyweights today. Monday, we're going to look at, let me get out of here before this thing go off again. But Monday, we're going to look at the first world champion in every weight class, all 17 of them. And we was doing light heavyweights today, and we had the first, we didn't talk about it because we're going to do that Monday, but Jack Root was the first world champion in light heavyweight back at, I think it was 1903, 1907. There's Jack. He was the first world champion in light heavyweight. And we're going to do it for every weight class Monday, on down from heavyweight to strawweight, 105, okay? So, and that's the week. Appreciate everybody that came through this week. Look forward to seeing you next week. Just Do Boxing, B3, Al Booger, Mike Mazik, William Old Schooler Rant, Mike Rim, and Miss Cass. Appreciate y'all 1,000,000%. Okay. Just Do Boxing coming up next. If it's Monday through Friday, 2 p.m., it's the Boxtorian bringing you all of that boxing history. Everybody have a great weekend. I'll holler at y'all.